Hello, everyone, and we're live. Welcome here.
Today, we're talking about taking off with FME, elevating airport operations to new heights. And we have a lot of great speakers here. My name is Don Murray, and I'm one of the co-founders of Safe Software. And with that, I'll just pass it off to people to introduce themselves. Yeah.
Well, hey, I'm Brian Herron, and I'm the GIS program manager at Hartsfield-Jackson. I have to say the whole name, Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport in Atlanta. There.
And I'm Thomas Wilson, Senior Solutions Architect with Axim Geospatial, and coming out of broadcasting from New Braunfels, Texas.
My name is Pash Sabapramai. I am the Aviation BIM Services Manager with C&S Companies, based in South Florida.
I'm Ed Copeland. I run the Geospatial Technology Services for Aviation in Woolport, and I'm coming from Austin, Texas.
And Andrew. Sure. Andrew Baumgartner, also with Axim Geospatial, coming from Medford, New Jersey.
And yeah, so just a quick agenda. We've done our introductions, and so I think we'll turn our cameras off now. Is that right, Elizabeth?
Yeah. We'll get our cameras off now just to save on some bandwidth for the remainder here.
And then Elizabeth is going to introduce us to the live storm, and then we're going to hear from Atlanta and Axim, and then Woolport's going to talk about Orlando and Fort Lauderdale. C&S is going to talk about what they've done with Philadelphia, and then with inclusion, and then some next steps and questions. Yeah.
Perfect. So if you are newer to Livestorm, you can find a help button in the bottom left if you have any audio issues at all. The chat's on the bottom right. Keep letting us know where you're tuning in from. If you do have any questions throughout, you can drop those in the questions panel as well. We'll have time to answer those. And you can download the deck with the top right button there. All right, and we have a poll to kick things off. So I'll go ahead and launch that if everyone wants to head over to the poll tab. Give everyone a moment there to vote. It looks like engineering GIS is the most popular type of system there. Is that what we'd expect this morning, John?
Yeah, definitely. That's sort of that plays to FME's strength and traditionally, and so so absolutely that's not surprising. It's exciting to see the other systems there as well. So that's great.
Excellent. Thanks everyone for voting there. And with that, we'll pass things over back to Dawn for a quick intro here before we hand things over to our guest speakers.
Yeah, awesome. So today we're going to talk about, the theme is, building seamless airport operations with FME. And you're going to hear about real experience in solutions today. You're not going to listen to me talk about FME or how great it is or whatever, which I'm sure everybody's relieved about. It's going to be really how has it been used at real airports to solve real problems. And so it's exciting. Another poll, I guess, eh?
Yeah, we've got another poll here. So we'd love to know, what is the biggest challenge you face with data integration? Looks like data quality and standardization is a big one, which I know is a common challenge folks do face. All right, thanks everyone for voting. And I know someone just noted bell noise. I know our fire alarm's going off in the building, so thanks folks for bearing with us. We'll have webcams off and webcams and mics off in a moment here.
So FME helps in many ways. Automation is a big one, right? You have lots of staff. They have everybody has too much to do. So the more you can automate, the more you can free staff to do higher value things. And that's where the standardization and data quality comes in. And that's one thing people use FME for is if you can enforce data standards between GIS standards, CAD standards, or BIM standards, now you can start to build automation processes. It's really hard or even impossible if every single CAD file you get is different or every single GIS file or BIM file you get is different. It's just there's no way to really automate. And of course, we integrate between all different systems, BIM, CAD, and GIS, and the three big categories with airports. And data quality is every customer of ours uses FME to enhance data quality and enforce standard. And then the last thing is just making data available. I was in the conference in Bonn. Shell referred to it as taking that data the last mile. They use the metaphor of if UPS dropped the package at the curb, how useful would that be? But with FME and Flow apps, you can actually deliver it to people. And there is no cost we don't charge per user. So you could open this up to as many users as you want. At the end of the day, with FME, you're paying for CPU time, whether it be engines or CPU hours. And so our goal is to give you many, many more tools so that you'll be able to do more and hence use more engine time. And so that's really our shtick on all of that. Yeah. And yeah, so there's a platform you're going to hear about today, Form, where you do the authoring of the workflows, and then FME Flow, where you do automation, share data, and anything like that. Okay, that's me.
All right. We'll hand things over to Atlanta and Axim here.
Brian is up first, so he's going to talk to you a little bit about their goals.
All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. It's almost afternoon here in Atlanta. Before I get started, really quickly, I'm very surprised at the numbers, standardization and data quality in the poll. 72%. It's good to know we don't suffer alone. That is at the world's busiest airport with a multi-billion-dollar capitalization program that rolls over every 5 years. That is our single biggest problem. But anyway, so why are we here to talk about FME? Well, back in 2016, the GIS group at the airport went to the cloud. We went there for a host of reasons, but one of them was just to give us better control over our environment. And actually, we engaged the predecessor of Axim Geospatial. At the time, they were GIS Inc. We engaged them to basically lift and shift our on-premise environment up to the cloud. And that just moving to the cloud opened a whole bunch of opportunities that were not available to us before when we were under what I call the heavy iron IT concept, where everything was in the basement and you had to do the special knock on the door to get in and talk to the systems administrators. Almost immediately, we were asked to start integrating GIS with other systems at the airport, and we were successful initially. This is really our first go at it, but those initial integrations were all hand wired. There were scripts that would run in the background. There were just processes that would run at certain times, and everything was very fragile. And frankly, the performance of each of those hand woven links was highly dependent on the skill of the individual that set them up, and where they placed them in the data processing cycle and things like that. So after a year of success, things really started to get creaky and often would break, and we'd have to get Axim Geospatial to take a look at it and maybe kick the virtual box to get things running again. So then, about 2 years ago, the airport made the corporate level decision to go with Cityworks. We set aside our other work order management and asset management system and decided to go completely with Cityworks. And then, again, the issues about integration cropped up, and we were looking at those hand-wired connections to other systems. Like the legacy, they wanted to link the legacy work order management system back into Cityworks to pull over historical information, this, that, and the other. And it's about that time that Thomas Wilson from Axim Geospatial came to me begging and said, please, 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 can we go to FME? He says, if we go to FME, and he literally had a page of things that would finally work properly if we went to FME to handle all those integration tasks. And we said, yes, let's do it. Let's stand up FME server and use that as the integration platform. I will say almost immediately, the problems went away. We haven't had any issues with integrations not working since FME was put in place. And so much so that with the integration or the introduction of Cityworks, although we don't own Cityworks as an application at the airport, those that do, which is basically our in-house IT department, are looking at us more and more for access to FME server to handle tasks above and beyond just Cityworks integration. So we see going with FME as one of the keys to success to the Cityworks adoption. And it literally every time I turn around now, I'm looking for another opportunity to use FME to integrate something. And as a matter of fact, as we were waiting for this call to start, all of the all the presenters were in the chat room and we were all talking. And I got a hold of Thomas while we had a few moments. And I say, Thomas, need to talk to you again about another FME integration on two Esri Survey 123 forms that we're setting up. So we're just expanding its use. So it's been a huge success for us here at the airport. I strongly recommend it. That's it.
All right. Okay, so we'll get in now and talk a little bit about some strategies here as well. So yeah, so just sort of like Brian was mentioning earlier, from the goals that they had set forth at Atlanta Airport, some of the blockers that were in place that we had to get around, and then sort of some of those things that we set up to ease the integration and automation process there at the airport using FME flow and forms to do that. And so it's been a very big increase in reliability and speed, and has really grabbed the attention of users at the airport and what we can do with the platform. So we're going to show you a little bit about that now through a recorded demo here. But first we'll talk about a little bit about the workflow that you're going to see. So the first one we're going to see is a process that sends Survey 123 data directly to Brian and his staff via email to set up new assets in the GIS that ultimately will make their way into Cityworks. And so that starts out with a Survey 123 form that a user fills out that captures their information. It's written to a feature in ArcGIS Online. And then once that Survey 123 form is submitted, a webhook within Survey 123 triggers the automation in FME Flow to run the workspace, grab the data from Survey or from the GIS, process it, export it to a CSV, and then email that content to the GIS department. So we'll run through what that looks like here in action. So we'll see here that the Survey 123 form, many of you are probably familiar with the process or the way that the Survey 123 form operates. So users will fill out their information that is really the attributes and details of the asset that they want created by Brian and his team. And so with that, they're able to submit all their textual information, any comments, upload files, any documents that should accompany this, and then that's going to then make its way through the process. So once this form is submitted, then that's where Survey 123 takes the next step. So you'll see here in the survey configuration, we have a webhook configured to, upon submission of that form, that sends that data payload to an FME automation. So there's a unique URL that FME server or FME form flow is listening for that payload, then it processes it. So you'll see here that, although it's small here, that automation ran to send that data via email. And so the ultimate result of that is an email with that data exported in CSV form, as well as displayed within the body of the email. All right. And then, so just kind of in summary, oh, go ahead, Brian.
Oh, Thomas, I just wanted to, if I could, make a real quick comment for those of you, the folks who are participating or wondering. So at Hartsfield Airport, the GIS group does all of the room and door numbering for all of the airport. We have a unified room and door numbering system that was developed by the lead architect, and we're the ones that implement it. So this is the form you just saw was the entry point for a process that consumes about, depending on what's going on at the airport, between 30 and 50% of my staff on any given day. So it was really important that we get our hands around this. Hey, listen, I need room and door numbering support, because it was just coming in all directions by email, by walk up, just all kinds of ways. We've now put this form in place and we're enforcing it. The only way you get room and door numbering assignments here at the airport is by going to this form, filling it out, and everything gets routed through Survey 123 and FME. So context. That's
perfect, Brian. Thanks. So just in summary, Survey 123 form is filled out. The webhook fires and triggers FME flow to run that automation. And then that data is exported and attached to an email and sent to Brian and crew. Okay. So the next one we're gonna see is where we get information that is being sent from Survey 123 directly into Cityworks. And so again, a very similar process from a user's perspective. They're filling out a work request form in Survey 123. And then that is ultimately captured as a feature within the GIS, in this case, a feature within ArcGIS Enterprise instead of ArcGIS Online. And then once that survey is submitted, then the webhook behind the scenes, again, triggers that FME flow automation to run, because it's sitting out there listening for that message to come through. And then ultimately that service request is created in Cityworks to include all the information that was put into the form, the textual stuff, the attachments, etc. Now this workflow has a return for this process. So as that service request is updated in Cityworks, whether that be a status change, it's closed, it's open, or it's canceled, whatever that might be, there's webhooks in Cityworks that again trigger a message back to FME Flow to run an automation to then update the feature in ArcGIS Enterprise. And so this process is cyclical until that service request is closed out. So we'll see that here in action. All right, so in this example, users are presented or starting with a GIS interface where they're able to select a space within the airport and then submit a service request against that space. And because we're triggering this from a GIS application, it is going to bring asset information over with it into that service request. But in this case, this example, we're going to go ahead and populate a survey form on a water leak. And you'll see that asset information there in the form. And once that form is populated, the attachments are submitted, everything's added. Once that form is submitted, again, that webhook is going to fire and send that message off to FME server. So we'll see that in a similar way that we saw just a little bit ago, where the setting within the survey form itself has that webhook configured. And then you'll see that is linked directly to that FME automation. And so that's where that payload is going to go. And so if we take a look at behind the scenes in FME Flow, we'll see that automation, that workspace there is being executed, and we'll see that complete here. So that was completed, and then that sent that information onto Cityworks. And so what that looks like from a Cityworks perspective, we see a dashboard here in Cityworks that shows some recent service requests that were populated from the Survey 123 form. And you see we have 5 records in there. If I refresh this page, then we'll see now that we have 6 records, and we'll see that water leak service request that pops up in the list. And so again, we've pushed all the information from survey over, including all the text-based information, attachments, location information, any of that type of data has all been pushed into Cityworks. Now, as part of this process, the submitter gets that email, and this can be submitted either from Cityworks or from FME, like we saw in the first example. All right, so this was sort of in a similar frame that Brian spoke about, the door management earlier. This was to help their facilities maintenance folks be able to receive those survey or those work requests from staff. So instead of them sending emails, making phone calls, coming by the office, they're able to go get into this portal and submit those work requests, for light bulbs that are out, carpet that's torn, custodial needs, whatever it might be. Those get sent in via Survey 123. FME kind of chews that information up, processes it, and then sends it to Cityworks. So that's really what the ultimate goal of this one was as well. So it's a very similar workflow, very similar goal achieved with this one as it was in the first example. Brian, do you want to add any comments on this one?
So the challenge with this is we've got different parts of the airport are maintained by different contractors. So when you travel through Hartsfield Airport, and I'm assuming many of you have, wherever you walk on the inside of the terminal, all the maintenance in that area, whether it's cleaning the floors or dusting or whatever, is handled by a company called AATC. That's the Atlanta Airport Terminal Company. And they've got responsibility for maintaining all of the passenger terminals here at the airport and some of the rental car centers and things like that. They use a completely different work order management system called Infor. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. And there's no contractual obligation for them to move off of Infor and adopt Cityworks. We just simply can't make that happen. So one of the tasks that we will be taking up in FY 2024 is working integrations through FME with Cityworks to Infor and then back again, because they won't respond. The AATC won't respond to anything unless it becomes a service request in their own Infor system. And the only way to make that crosstalk work is going to be through FME. So that's just another one of the big challenges we face at the airport. So thank you.
And that's it for us. And there's our contact information if you need it. All right. And that concludes our part, and I will pass it on to the next presenter.
All righty. Thank you. This is Ed Copeland Wolpert. I'm going to cover kind of what the number one thing sitting on the poll, which was really standardization and data quality. I'm going to look at two different airports that we have done a lot of FME with in Florida, both Orlando with the Greater Orlando Aviation Authority and also with Broward County Aviation Department. And part of that really is we're going to look at how we move data seamlessly throughout the organization. So I'll go over some of the existing conditions, how it was, show you some of the results of that, and then we'll look at what some of the lessons learned that we found out of that. So, kind of what's our goal? Well, our goal is to ingest deliverables and translate it to systems or people, right? What does that mean? It means getting it into whether that's a Maximo, a Cityworks, an Infor, whether it's taking it and getting it to the engineering department so that they get the right CAD results, the right information to be able to disseminate that to other contractors, or whether it's disseminated into even, lease management software things. So what's the one thing that really was blocking this happening throughout the organization before we started looking at FME? Well, it's just staff resources, having the people to go in there and actually do the ETL process manually. One of the other big things that we saw was compatible standards. Not that standards weren't in place in certain instances. It's just that the standards didn't talk to each other. So I'll go in some detail how we went over that block. So what is the key to that? Develop standards that are compatible, develop crosswalks, put in automation so that we can reduce the amount of effort on the staff and their resources to move information seamlessly throughout the organization. What was the result? The result is this: is we get data available, as we kind of mentioned, in CAD, GIS, BIM, no matter what the deliverable is coming into the organization. And I will talk about that, what that looks like. So existing conditions. So I kind of took both these airports at the same time. They're somewhat in the same existing conditions. We're running down the same kind of pathway to get the end result. But what it really exists to is standards. I think people talked about that, standardization and data quality. At both of these, we updated the BIM standards at both Broward County and at GOA. And so that was the key. We've got brand new standards in place. Okay, that's great. But how do we get BIM deliverables? How do we get that to flow downward? The standards aren't compatible. A lot of siloed data. Data not being used because the deliverable comes into a format and there's nobody to go out and move that data to something that's being needed. At GOA, they're really wanting to get this information. They've got a lot of growth, the South Terminal, a lot of expansion going on there. But the BIM data comes in, it's only sitting in Revit. How do we get that out of Revit so that we can pull those assets out and feed the Maximo system, right? The standards at the airport were being led by the contractors. So kind of when you have a contractor doing different projects, they were dictating what they were going to be put in there. They were dictating their BIM execution plans at that pace. So we took a step back and said, okay, let's go in and create new BIM standards for them. And then that's what led us to developing and looking at that compatibility to other existing standards. So one of the things that we just kind of wanted to iterate, which is, okay, this is great, but before you even start getting into the software, before you start scripting and looking at automation, one thing that we really is crosswalk everything and get buy-in from the stakeholders. What do we mean by that? It's really looking at what data is being delivered by each of the standards, understanding that if you want to move information and you want to keep data from BIM to GIS or BIM to CAD, what do you need to do to create those standards so they can talk to each other? Is it what object data needs to be in there? What type of COBie data needs to be in our BIM standards? What attributes in GIS? What is Maximo looking for? What is our lease management? So really plan out and crosswalk and get buy-in from all of the end users of this data who's asking for information that are coming from projects being delivered at the airport. We say use BIM to GIS and CAD first. So if you're creating a crosswalk or a scripting for everything, try to do the BIM to GIS and CAD at the same time. And we find that it really reduces effort in there when you're working on a certain family that's in the BIM and you're moving it in. And if you do the crosswalk correctly, you can actually do some importing in of this into the scripting to help with the setup and if it's implemented correctly. So we find that to be important. So for a demo, really what I'm going to do, let me just share my screen. I'm really going to just share what it looks like on my, sorry, I'm going to get the share screen. Oh, entire screen, sorry. Okay. So looking at it, if you can see my screen. So what I'm showing is this is Terminal 2 at Broward County. So one thing we did at Broward County is we took all of the disciplines. We created that crosswalk in there. And what I want to show out of this is really what you get out of this. So the first thing that we did to be able to talk to disciplines, and we just converted the entire model into something that was easily usable. So in this case, I'm going to really focus on a segment to show you escalators. So when you look at escalators in the BIM model, you get the object model that's sitting here, right? This is the actual model that's coming out of it. It has some basic information that's in the BIM model. When you look at that and you take away that escalator, what is it that you get out of? So manage expectations for deliverables for people. So when you look at it in this format, this is what we get when it comes into the CAD file. So this is the same operation of looking at it, delivering the CAD information, but this is all we get. So look at that. What's the object data? In a GIS, when we do that, we end up getting this really lengthy attribute because people that are sitting there in the GIS, they're wanting more information to feed other systems that go on GIS, such as Maximo, such as their lease management. But one thing I would say about this is make sure you understand what each of those are getting. People understand what the deliverables are when you translate what you get out of that thing. Same things with doors. If I go look at a door, right? I mean, it's the doors in the in an architectural world, have a nice three-dimensional, the light is live on my computer, so it may be choking a little bit. So it does give you, a door. So in a GIS world, it's a line, for instance. In a CAD world, you end up with a three-dimensional, door swing that's in there. So those are some ideas of what we've done at BCAD. Sorry, it's coming up. It's slow going. But I do want to jump over and talk about what we did at Orlando. Slightly different. We did Fort Lauderdale earlier on. We took an entire terminal. We did it all. And then all of a sudden we realized we're really struggling with this large amount of data. We took a different approach at GOA where what we did is we literally take and created a kind of dummy data for every single feature that's in there. We identified in great detail. You can see that GOA really crosswalked and took out a lot of information from their BIM model. So everything from the room, the level, the names, everything that was in there. So with GOA, we built an artificial model to build the scripting side of things just to save time, to really get it nailed down. And this is dividing the importance of the crosswalk and understanding what you get out of there in a 3D versus this is the 2D world that comes out of there. Same information, but slightly different details. You can see this is more of the GIS, which just has what's needed there versus what came out of the Kobe. So one thing to note that I would say out of there is that the importance of understanding the information that's in there and what you should do when it comes to large modeling versus small modeling and getting that in there. Yeah. So with that, I kind of want to go over some of the lessons we learned by doing these large integrations from BIM to CAD to GIS. First step, standards, right? Create CAD, GIS, and BIM standards. Be sure to ensure compatibility. Be sure they can talk to each other. Make sure that there's a home for the attribute information that's being collected in BIM if you want to use it in Maximo, because Maximo is going to look at GIS or something else. So look at what your asset management system is. Create a script to make BIM data easy to view in CAD or GIS. Building a script takes a long time. There's a lot of unknown time during there, so 3-4 months where you don't have to show anything. What I would suggest is create a script fast and easy that just translates it as is so that people understand what you're doing and you can get the picture on the right without all the attribute and information. Conduct a needs assessment for stakeholders. Get input from the various departments. Ask them what data they're looking for. So when a project gets delivered and something comes online, what do you need for operations and maintenance going forward? What information would best benefit you? And like I said, build a home for that in the different categories. Develop crosswalk tables as part of standards development. I think that's important too. As you update standards, have a crosswalk that it gets updated at the same time so that you have a roadmap, you have a plan for scripting going forward or a changes there. That's your documentation on how you built that complex script. Involve the asset management team early on. They're the ones, no matter what the system is, that are going to use this going on. They're the ones going to keep it updated and get information that's there. Identify BIM assets to be extracted during the standards development. Once again, think of the end goal when you're creating the standards in the CAD. What's the end process there? Some BIM lessons learned. I'm not a BIM expert. I'm a GIS, geospatial background. But these are some of the things that we learned from working with architects in the BIM side of things. Try to use only 3D surface models in Revit if possible. Create dedicated views. We create a view and we develop this in our standard now that says this is the view whenever you deliver a project that needs to be created that FME only uses. So we're putting this on the contractors to go in and provide this view for us so that it gets delivered to the airport. So the airports can automatically run the automation. Create Kobe fields. Make sure in your BIM execution plans you define what those are. Decide what's really important to bring over from BIM. BIM models are very complex in nature. They are phases, a lot of different phases, a lot of scheduling information, a lot of clash. Do we need all of that to operate and maintain the facilities going forward? Geo-reference BIM models. When I tell you, find everything, everybody that's been around the geospatial world knows, everything was inserted 0-0. It's just not efficient. Make sure to start, you get the BIM model in there, you provide a geo-reference BIM model to them. Yeah, I see this smiling, laughing at it because that's the way they come over. Make sure that's dictated in the standards in the execution plan. And then start small. I believe when you're actually starting the scripts and testing them, start small. Like I said, for GOA, we didn't take it through terminal. We took something of every family and went that round. It saved us time and effort. To convert Terminal 2 at Fort Lauderdale, it takes 30 minutes or so for each discipline. So it's not really a good quality way for testing info. So what we're working on now, and like I said, it's nice to have both these airports kind of running the same path. We learn from each other. We learn from the different organizations. They're tremendous in providing feedback. So we're building an as-built portal. So what's our main goal here? It's really to reduce the effort on reviewing deliverables to the airport. What's our blockage right now is really, we don't have a site for contractors to deliver information to the airport. Everything comes in, through a box, a SharePoint, an email, etc. And then, so to build a portal for them, what we're doing is we're going to automate this. We're using the FME flow to at least get 90% the goal we're looking, right, of QA to standards. This is really to help reduce that labor and that staff to make sure it's going in there. It's also to give the contractors the ability to improve before getting rejected and submittals back and forth. And then right now we're doing a CAD, we're working on GIS, but the idea is also to look at other media delivered through this portal going forward based upon various standards. We just had our meetings. This is kind of the workflow that we're working on right now for as-built portal. We're just building a web page. I say web portal, it's really just a web page that comes in. It's going to allow a user to put information about that project, what's going on, submit the AutoCAD file. It goes in there, it comes through Flow, it looks at it, and it spits back the report that allows them to get real-time feedback, real-time being how long it takes to do it, depending on the as-built file that's being delivered. It validates that DWG file. Once it validates, it comes in there. It allows them to actually submit the file. It opens up a new thing that submits it, and it gets delivered to a storage. So that's what we're currently working on at Fort Lauderdale. With also Orlando is also looking at going down this route. So with that, I appreciate it. And anything with Wolpert, so I'll pass it on to the next presenter.
All right, thank you, Ed. We were talking before how airports are mini cities. There's a saying that we say in the airport community: if you've seen one airport, you've seen one airport, because every airport's unique. And for my part, I just want to present on and highlight the success story that we've had with Philadelphia International Airport. So I've been working with Nora, who's the director of Geospatial for the Department of Airports at the City of Philadelphia. They manage PHL and PNE. And we're going to talk about, she's not able to be on the call today, but I'll go through her part. But we're going to talk about how we're embarking on a new geospatial roadmap and how Philly is utilizing FME to improve the efficiencies. So we can start by observing the inefficiencies over the past years at the airport. There's been shorthanded on staff. There's no data governance, outdated standards, no integration between CAD and GIS. There's multiple data storage leading to data silos. We have an asset management system, but not maximizing it. And there's really no plan for the future or for the growth for CAD or GIS. So walking back real quick, Nora has always been part of the city for most of her career, but she joined the airport team back in 2016. And we're going to lead up to how we create the Spatial Services group. Back in 2016, GIS and CAD was managed separately. 2018, GIS got consumed with IT, but CAD was still managed under planning. And along the way, we experienced a pandemic, layoffs, early retirement. But finally, in 2022, Nora was able to establish an all spatial group under the Spatial Services group, under the Capital Development group. And this allows us to manage all the data, all the spatial data and services under one entity within the enterprise. And finally, here we are today, launching FME in earlier this year. So I'll highlight some of the use cases there. But as we say, Spatial Services, what is it? For us, we're the bridge that support the spatial data applications and processes within the entire enterprise. So whether that be our asset management platform, which is Maximo, GIS, CAD, or BIM, we're communicating within the engineering, planning, IT, operations within the enterprise. So how do we begin? For the past few years, we established a GIS roadmap. We determine and engage the stakeholders within the enterprise that uses or are interested in spatial data and applications. I think this is one main thing that, coming back to saying about if you've seen one airport, you've seen one airport. This is probably the most, aside from the infrastructure, each stakeholder, internal stakeholder will be different at each airport. So it's important to understand who your internal clients are. And finally, we're able to utilize the GIS roadmap to advocate for funding and resources. And this previous year, Nora and the team issued their first GIS on-call RFP. Following that, we're working on a GIS data governance right now, being able to maintain the quality, reliability, security, and usability of our spatial data. And then working alongside the data governance, the Spatial Services group are identifying different workflows, making sure we understand who is responsible for what, how, and when that data is coming through. And finally, how do we improve the efficiencies at the airport? So just highlighting some current airport needs. We want to reduce the data silos, right? We want to denote a single source of truth. And for us, the CDE would be GIS. We want to optimize the consumption of CAD, BIM files into the database. Historically, everything has been delivered as a CAD file, as part of the engineering and planning team and architecture team as well. And we lose a lot of data there because Revit files gets downgraded into 2D CAD and all the attributes goes away. So we hope FME can help us later on with that as well. And then we also want to provide GIS staff resources, right? We want to automate repetitive processes. And the main highlight here that, we've integrated FME into enterprise this year was to help integrate GIS with the asset management platform, which is Maximo for the airport. So here we are. We got our FME licenses earlier this year. The airport is really big on proof of concept. They want to test everything out before rolling out the workflows. So I just want to highlight some things we've worked on this the past few months. CAD layer validation, CAD to GIS, data set review, automation through FME flow setup, and then the main focus is GIS Maximo integration. So CAD layer validation, just high level, we have a CAD standard and a drawing template. So we review consultant submitted CAD files, DWG files, and compare it, making sure the layers are matching, making sure they're using the latest and greatest drawing template that we're providing. And then on top of that, I mentioned GIS is our core data. There are some layers that may have points, lines, or polygons associated to it, where we want to validate the specific layers before coming into GIS as well. So we can do a CAD layer validation based on expected associated geometry. And then we can generate an HTML report, which is just a a quick snapshot of one of the POCs we worked on for the non-compliance CAD layers. And the benefits here is it saves time on review and it eliminates human errors in the review process. CAD to GIS, for us, we're starting to roll out FME. So we didn't want to fully integrate CAD to GIS. We want to make sure there's a review process in between. So for us, we're setting up Workbench to format the CAD elements with the data schema template that we have and export it as a shapefile. And then that gets reviewed by the GIS staff, and then they would append it into the production GIS database. And then this graphic here is just more of we're automating, we're using FME flow. And lastly, just want to highlight the main selling point that we use FME for at PHL is to help optimize our GIS and Maximo integration. So this is just a previous workflow of what they were doing earlier this year. So starting from the left side, we have the GIS team, and then on the right side, we have the Maximo Asset Management team. So the GIS team would export the feature, and then the Maximo team would take that CSV, manually edit and format that into the data structure for that asset so it can be consumable in Maximo. Then once that gets created, it exports back, and then we modify that spreadsheet again with the new Maximo ID so we can append it into GIS. So off the bat, FME jumped in. We were able to create a workbench to automate that process, right? We can extract the feature information, format that CSV so it's structured for the specific asset, and then the Maximo admin can then check that CSV and then import it into Maximo, create the asset, and then we can automate the same process back to append the GIS. So still manual steps, but we're eliminating the human errors, right? Less errors in the formatting, and there's still a QA/QC process there. This previous month, we just completed our proof of concept for the API connection. So we established a connection with an FME workbench and the Maximo API. And that allows us to automate the workflows for data creation from GIS to Maximo. And we can also, once the link is there, we link it through Maximo IDs, we can, and within the tied data field from GIS and Maximo, we can make edits back and forth. And then adding on to that, we want to make sure that, the data, since it's not fully synchronized, we're going to make sure that, if a work order is created in Maximo that changes the data field on there, or something changes in the field capture side within GIS, those data are always up to date. It's not static, it's dynamic. So in this example, starting from left side, let's say a change has been made to a GIS attribute. We have a FME workbench that would run scheduled nightly on off hours to check, for any changes. And if there's a change, it would create a report and then be emailed to the system administrator, where they'll coordinate between the Maximo admin and the GIS admin to verify the change and make those changes on their databases. The goal for our airport, since our CDE is GIS, we want BIM CAD and an asset management platform to be communicating with GIS, so every data is always current, and FME will help us get there. And that's it for me. Here's my contact. I'll pass it on to Don or Elizabeth.
Great, thanks, Posh, and it was fantastic. Yeah, all of those talks were great, and it's kind of interesting because the one thing that everybody at the beginning identified as being critical to them was standards and data quality played a key piece in all of those stories. So really so great. So now some resources for folks if you want to, and then we'll get into see if there's some questions for folks. So a little bit about SAFE software. We're used around the world. SAFE doesn't do services, so that's we've highlighted 3 here: Axim, C&S, and Woolpert, and we have partners around the world. So wherever you are, there's probably a partner. If you have a partner you really like to work with, we'd be happy to reach out to them as well. And to learn more, if you want to contact us, we just love talking about data, and so info@safe.com. Just reach out to us for any topic at all around data, or what you're seeing or what you would like us to do. We don't for an instant think that FME is finished or done or perfect or doesn't have areas that can improve, and so we're always happy to chat with anybody about do you wish FME did this, or you wish FME didn't do that, or whatever it is. So that goes for any customer, but also any partner. And many of the things you see coming in FME that have been developed have come from really great conversations with customers or partners to help us build our roadmap. And that's one of the things we rely on. Since we don't do services, we're not getting some of the insights unless we talk with our great partners and customers. So please do that. We really appreciate it. There's the accelerator. You can find it at academy.safe.com. We've just launched a new academy, and you're going to see we launched a new website and branding, which continues to evolve. We launched a new academy, and we're launching a new community. We're launching, new everything basically to continue to take our ability to support customers to the next level. So, and that's one way we pride ourselves compared to other vendors, is we really do, when you contact us and you have a data challenge, we really do like to dig deep and help you get through it. And we care. And so we talk about, at SAFE, we talk a lot about the restaurant model, and how when you go to a really nice restaurant, the product has to be good, but also the service has to be good. And that's, I think in technology in general, the service aspect is very poor, and we like to stand above that. So, also, if you're new to spatial data, or you want to have a fun read, Spatial Data for the Enterprise for Dummies. I worked on that with our director of marketing, and also like the guy, and he took what we wrote and then he dummified it. So it's really a really easy read. And I remember as we were writing that, I would correct him. He goes, "No, you got to speak in the dummy language," and I took that as a compliment, because maybe it meant I wasn't a dummy. But anyway, so and the FME Academy, you'll find it there. And knowledge base. Again, we're replacing the knowledge base with new technology as well. And the webinars. Elizabeth just does a fantastic job on the webinars, and you can click there to see all the ones that are upcoming, but all the ones in the past that have been that we just finished. So let's say you wanted to know how FME plays into DevOps. We did a webinar 2 weeks ago on that, and so you could see all the components we've added to FME Flow in the last release. So it really can help you with your DevOps, where you have, development, testing, staging, and production. We really have made big strides to make that really, really much easier and things like that. So you're going to find lots of different things. And of course, this one will be up there later today as well. And next steps. So if you're on the community and want a badge, there you go. CSWMB. And if you're not, join the community. It's you're just going to meet lots of other great users, ask questions, chat about different challenges. It's really a great place. And some time for questions.
Excellent. I'll invite our presenters back on stage with their webcams, and we can take a look over at the questions panel. did see some really interesting questions come in during the webinar. I know it looks like we might have gotten to them all, but
Yeah.
definitely, chat about a couple more. I know we have a few minutes left here.
I mean, there's questions about quality. Did you use FME to check the BIM models? And so, yeah, that's great question. And it's interesting. We were doing this webinar, I was chatting with some folks at SAFE, and we at SAFE we get excited about a lot of the really, I should never use the word cool, but I'll use the word cool things we're doing. But fundamentally, data quality and data standardization might not be cool, but it is the foundation for everything, right? I remember when I was on a call, I met a company that was doing indoor mapping, and they said, what we want is we want to go to any organization, just grab their CAD files, click a button, and my camera's not coming on. Interesting. Okay, well, I keep clicking, Elizabeth, but it won't turn on. Oh, now I'm on. Okay, great. And I said to them, oh, this is going to be a learning process. And then it's okay, yeah. So, and then 6 months later, he called me and he said, I was busy working, and then I realized what you meant by learning process. You meant learning process for me, because there's no way that I can just take arbitrary CAD files and figure out what is a floor, what's a door, because without standards, there's nothing to start with. And we've had CAD files from an organization where you print them out in paper, they look the same, but from one user, they would have like 100 layers. From another user, they had 1 layer. But when you put them on a piece of paper, they all look the same. And so anyway, so standardization is the basis for everything. You can't build automations if you can't even build a workspace that's going to run from one CAD file to another, because they're totally different. So yeah, so yeah, and then some questions on linking photos to 1, 2, 3 and things like that. And yeah, so I guess what I'll do now is go to the contact info for everybody. So we want to make sure that you can reach out to the presenter that you want to talk to learn more, because they clearly understand what they did better than we did at SAFE. And and with that, I just want to thank everybody. Thanks, Brian. It's really, really great to get a customer on who will talk about, because you live the problems, right? You really understand and can convey the things you've done with other airports and just the things you've seen better than than certainly a vendor like we can, and appreciate our great partners at Axim, C&S, and Wolpert as well. I know everybody's busy, and for you to take time off to do this is super appreciated. And and thanks everybody for attending. I know we're all got this thing in the back of our mind that we have like 2 weeks left in December.
Yeah.
So super busy. And yeah. Awesome.
Thanks so much, everyone. Hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays.